Our son was born 3 weeks after my dad died. I would have loved to have pulled the covers over my head and stayed in bed, and maybe I could have attempted that with his 3-year-old sister. A newborn, however, requires immediate attention, and so I'd start my fatherless day caring for a hungry baby and a busy toddler, both of whom were counting on me to keep it together. This boy baby required lots of keeping it together as he grew. He was born with a surplus of energy, and grieving for my dad, who was not around to know his namesake, was a sorrow that often got put on hold. For when morning broke, every single morning, that child would stand in his crib and bang it back and forth against the wall to let me know he was ready to start his day. I slipped my dad's spirit into my pocket every day when I woke and raised these kids and the sister that would come later. I seemed to be living a rather charmed life, and yes, I even had a white picket fence. Until on a perfect fall day, this son and his father were having an intense conversation that I walked in on in the garage. He got up and scurried past me into the house, and the charmed rug got ripped out from under me. He had just told his dad that he was gay. I let that revelation seep through me and then went into the house to find him. Alone in the basement, he sobbed. Heartbreaking, uncontrollable sobbing. And when he saw me, he said, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm really sorry." I held him tight and I sobbed for both of us. What followed next was my husband and I trying to make sense of this new reality when our first thought of the morning was that our kid was gay. I always pictured myself as being the supportive, endearing friend of the mother of a gay kid, much like a favorite sitcom. Instead, I felt like a mother whose kid had a target on his back, and I was terrified for him. I made an appointment with my priest friend. As I looked out the window of his office at the fall trees while he talked, I wondered when he was going to pull the miracle of peace out of his hat, or at the very least give me the handy laminated prayer card I was going to need to reference when the court of public opinion had their say. He had other plans for me. He offered to call a mom who had walked this path, and within an hour of getting home, I was pouring my guts out to someone I had never met. She arranged for my husband and I to meet with a group of other parents like us. At one gathering, one of the moms said to me, "You do know you're the luckiest one here, don't you?" I knew no such thing. A hot mess I would buy, but not lucky. "Do you want to know how I found out my son was gay?" she asked. "In the emergency room after he tried to kill himself. Your son talks to you guys. He trusts you, and don't you ever forget that." I clenched that observation of hers and have never let it go, even to this day. Learning to divorce myself from the Norman Rockwellish dreams I constantly replayed in my head, however, was a whole other story. Every morning I drove him to school, often in silence. "Mom, are you and Dad mad at me?" he asked one day. "No, Bud," I said wearily. "We're not. We're just trying to figure this out." I drove home, walked in the door, and said to my husband, "We cannot do this. We cannot let him think for 1 minute that we're mad at him or that we are disappointed." And so, beginning that day, we behaved differently. In his presence, we talked about homework and cross-country and getting a driver's license. When I dropped him off at school, I'd cheerfully tell him to have a good day and beg God as I drove away to watch over him. After that, I'd go home and walk the dog. Walking, crying, and talking to my long-departed dad was my daily routine. Over and over, I would mentally check off the names of every person I knew who was gay. Are they happy? Has life been good to them? I thought of their mothers. If I were to say that this journey was swift and easy, it would hardly resemble a real life. Eventually, though, having a gay kid was not my first thought of the morning. It was that I have 3 kids, and a new Norman Rockwell portrait began to take shape. In the years since this has become part of our family story, I have changed in more ways than I could even begin to count. I am fortunate to live in a time when even writing about this is possible. My mother's generation, or her mothers, weren't able to be so open. And I know that I will owe these women for the rest of my life. These women who dared not speak out loud of whom their son or daughter loved. Women whose emotional health paid a heavy price because they were burdened by secrets. I try to keep out the noise, but that is often difficult. I have been more outspoken about politics that affect his life because he is my kid. He was born wild and kind and always seems to know who is struggling and who needs the world to be more compassionate. When he's able to get a weekend free from school and work, he walks in the door and says the same thing every single time. You guys, I'm so happy to be home. I have the perspective of time to look back to when we struggled with all of it. And every day we would wander a maze that led us back to what we had always known. He is everything we ever wanted in a son. He is a shareholder in this kingdom. He is our will, and every morning I choose to slip love into my pocket.